the best part about it is the next thing I wanted to talk about has to do with card games. So the fact that we're listening to Pokken music, which is based on the IP Pokemon, which is a card game, now a fighting game because of Pokken, right? I think that fighting games and card games actually share a good amount of similarities, including some of the vocabulary, right? Like stealing turns, like win cons. Win cons is what I want to talk about today, right now, at this exact moment. The cool thing about fighting games is there's a lot of moments where you set up for things such as like set play or conditioning that make it so that beating your opponent in a final round or low life situation becomes a checkmate situation, right? And I don't mean a checkmate situation as in like you knock over their king. I mean, it's a really hard checkmate, as in, you know, you won. It's hard to get out of it, if not completely impossible to get out of it, right? So win con, which stands for, is shortened version of win condition. Win conditions in card games are usually things that either outright win you the game or put you into a very huge amount of card advantage or life advantage, right? Or even board presence that make it hard to come back. We can kind of loosely borrow this same idea for fighting games, right? So meter, holding on to meter for a final round situation, right? In a game like Tekken, you have rage art. Some people immediately spin their rage on things before calculating damage, right? Lower level players, mid-level players, sometimes they're just like, yes, okay, I watched them whiff, I'm going to rage art. And they're not dead, right? Instead of launching them, setting up for a big post-Oki situation, and then using your rage art as the finisher, using your rage drive as the finisher, right? That's a perfectly good example of a win condition. One in Soul Calibur. I think this one's pretty applicable to most of the cast. Most of the cast has some amount of force blocks. We don't call them meaties, we call them force blocks. Soul Calibur, right? So if you guys haven't ever watched me play Soul Calibur, which I'm sure you have, there's no way you haven't, right? You wouldn't be on my YouTube if you weren't watching me play on Twitch, right? So if you guys haven't noticed, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna keep his guard gauge red for the next round. You'll hear me say something like that, or no, I don't want to guard crush him yet. And I'll just start poking at him with lows, with moves that cannot break guard, or throws, moves that cannot break guard, so that I can leave my opponent's guard red for the final round, right? Because in situations where my opponent's guard is red, they have to be more scrambly, while I, on the other hand, do not. They have to mash more, while I, on the other hand, do not. And in the situation where I can set up a force block, they are dead, right? Zasalamo happens to have an extremely disgusting post guard crush lethal hit. Lethal hits are crush counters, are crushing blows. Crushing blows, is that what they're called? Crushing blows, or, you know, crush counters. So they're kind of like that. And so when you land something along those lines, they do really, really big damage, especially post guard crush. A lot of characters have something kind of like this, right? They have some sort of a big setup or situation that puts your opponent into a spot where they have to wake up a certain way, and they don't have enough time to soul charge, which is I4, I6, and they don't have enough time to reverse Ledger GI, which is I2 and I6 respectively, right? So establishing your win condition as a lower level player and even as a higher level player really helps you to build a better offense and game plan to not have to deal with scramble situations in final rounds a lot. You see a lot of people play really aggressive at the start of a final round in like a tournament, right? You'll see them in a top 8 and they're playing really aggressive and they get a huge life lead, and they're just constantly pressuring their opponent with the same, like, you know, they'll rotate through a few options and then they back away and you're like, what are they doing? Well, their timer is their win condition. They're like, I do not believe that with the amount of life that you have lost and the amount of risk you will have to take to reapproach me and get in and start an offense is enough for you to win this game. Their win condition is not actually a win condition, it's an opponent lose condition, which is the same thing, right? Think of another one, Soul Charge in Soul Calibur 6. Look, another Soul Calibur 6 example. Some characters have extremely powerful Soul Charges and Soul Charge options. Let's look at Grow, for example. Grow Soul Charge, when he's not using the specific moves 3BB and 1 AK, which take, I don't know, like a third of your soul gauge, you could use a fuck ton of your soul charge extensions, right? You can use a fuck ton of your soul charge. And all of that pressure leads to your opponent, a lot of times, just folding, just losing that round outright. The saving meter is another win condition. You could even look at it in the sense of Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, right? Fatal blows, or having a critical art live, a critical art in Street Fighter 5. You see people just doing their mid-range pokes, doing their heavies and their medium kicks, their heavy punches, their heavy kicks, their medium kicks, over and over and over, backstepping and walking back in and doing it again. What they're trying to do is they're trying to hit confirm their way into their win condition, which is critical art. In Mortal Kombat, on the other hand, in NRS games, which chip damage still exists, chip kills still exists, right? In those games, what you're more likely to see is someone save a multi-hit meter burn move or a multi-hit string that can turn the game around or chip someone out as their win condition, right? Aquaman in Injustice 2, perfect example. If your opponent did not have a push block, did not have a way to get out of the meter burn extension to the pokey pokies, I don't know what the fuck the move's called, I don't remember, don't ask me, okay? I know you know which move I'm talking about, where he's fucking Trident Rush. If he does the Trident Rush extension and you don't have meter to stop him and you're in a low life situation, that is a chip kill. That is a win condition. If they held meter and forced you off of yours, that is a win condition. Now, that's only a few examples, a few fighting games, but every fighting game has some sort of something that you would use for a win condition. And I think that for every character that you play and every character that you play against, you should know the common win condition, the common win conditions and play patterns of your opponent and your win conditions as that character. Right? And I think that helps a lot of lower level and mid-level players who can't close out games, because I've seen it happen all the time. They're like, oh, this game sucks. You just fucking mash and then use your super and you win. It's like, no, dude, he wasn't mashing the super. He was mashing to stop you. And when you mashed and got hit and he fucking supered your ass and you died, that was his win condition. You didn't properly play around it. Did you have a higher life? Run away. Were you guys about even in life and it was a war of attrition? Use safer buttons or things that cannot be whip punished. Nice, right? It's not always that simple, because of course fighting games are more nuanced than that. There's a lot of mind games that go into it, but it is always nice to keep your win conditions in mind when you're playing a fighting game, right? And I think it's kind of the same way when you look at a game like Overwatch or shooting or fighting game. I mean, card games. Card games, post decks, some sort of a win condition where it's like you get this card on the board or you pull off this combo and the game is essentially over. If your opponent did not answer it, it will drain their resources, whether it be card advantage or board presence, and they are put into a spot where it is very hard to come back. Now, win conditions in card games are a little different. Of course, the way that I established win conditions in fighting games, I made them seem like they're an end-all be-all, and for the most part, as long as they're used properly, they are. Card games is a little more different, because of course, it's a turn-based game. Now, with something like Overwatch, or any team shooter that has, right, so we can even look at a game like Paladin. A perfectly serviceable win condition used to be in the earlier days of Overwatch, when Mercy's ultimate just revived the team that was around her. They were dead. Used to be getting into a battle of attrition in a final round situation, or close to a payload push, right? Or close to a payload defend, whichever. Making sure your Mercy stays alive, having most of the team go down, maybe take a few trades, right? They lose 2 guys, you lose 4, you lose 3. Okay, so they lose 2 or 3, you lose all of them except the Mercy. And then you hear this. Heroes never die. And then the entire team is rezzed, and now it's a 5v3 or a 5v2. That is another win condition that can be established in, something like an Overwatch, right? Let's talk about Paladins. That's a shooting game that I really like. I think it's super sick. Seris is a healer, a very strong healer. And she doesn't do a lot of damage, but she has some of the best chain heals in the game. Right? For anyone who plays like MOBAs or team-based class shooters, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So she has a really powerful chain. And there's a character who recently got nerfed. Maybe it wasn't recently, maybe it was about a year ago. Got nerfed, named Androxus. And Androxus's ult is just him shooting his, he's like a Reaper, if you play Overwatch. But he just shoots his gun and it does 3 times damage and can hit through multiple targets. Now, Seris's ultimate is a bubble that is a CC and pulls people into it. So you can see where I'm going with it. The combo is keep Seris alive, get trades, Chain Heal, keep Seris and Androxus alive. Use Seris ult to pull the rest of the enemy team in, and use Androxus ult. And if they have already extinguished their movement abilities or their anti-stun abilities, they are fucking dead. Another good win condition in a payload pushing sort of game, right? So that's just a few out of fighting game examples. Now remember, this was all related to fighting games. So I want you, the viewers, the audience, the watchers, to think about your offense and think about how often you try to push for a win condition, or if you've ever even attempted to establish one. And if you haven't, start doing it. It's gonna make your offense and your game plan a lot. Thanks for watching. It's going up on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, come by to the streams. Hang out here. It's pretty sick. I like to play a lot of Halo, a lot of Soul Calibur, and RuneScape. Occasionally Paladins, like I mentioned. I really like that game. But either way, just come for my sick personality. My personality is probably cooler than any of the gameplay that you'll have to see. Anyway, thanks for watching. Peace.